Ida B. Wells. She was a journalist, a suffragist, and an anti-lynching activist. Ida B. Wells was born into slavery in 1862 during the Civil War. In 2020, the Pulitzer Prize Board awarded her a special citation. The award celebrated her investigative reporting on lynchings of Black Americans. She fought for equality at a time when being a female journalist of color was rare at best, but her legacy goes farther than her work. Let's bring in someone with a personal connection to this new Barbie doll. Michelle Duster is the great-granddaughter of Ida B. Wells. She's also a public historian and the author of Ida B. the Queen, The Extraordinary Life and Legacy of Ida B. Wells. Ms. Duster, welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks for having me, Joshua.
Talk about how this doll came about and how you worked with Mattel on it.
Well, I can tell you my involvement. I was approached by Mattel with the idea of creating a doll, and I was amazed and just so honored that they would consider creating a doll in her honor. And I was involved with the development of the doll along with my brother Dan. And we were incredibly, we had a lot of input into a lot of details about her, her hairstyle, her dress, the fact that she has the Memphis Free Speech, which was the newspaper that she edited and co-owned in Memphis, and the background that you see in the packaging. We had some input into that. So we really worked to make sure that within the realm of dolls, that she could be as accurate and historically based as possible.
Now, on one hand, part of me, if I had heard this, would be like, oh, a Barbie doll. The other part of me would have been like, oh, a Barbie doll? Like, were you fully on board with this from the beginning, or was there a little bit of concern that, like, what is this finna be?
Well, I mean, there actually have been several other products that have been created around my great-grandmother's legacy. And for Barbie to make this decision just makes it to a very broad audience. And hopefully young girls all the way to, older women will be inspired by this doll. And not only enjoy the doll, but also learn about the life and legacy of my great-grandmother, who you mentioned was a suffragist and a journalist, a pioneer. She spoke truth to power, and she used her voice in journalism to impact change.
Now, talk to people who may not be familiar with her. I think for Black journalists, especially journalists who trained at historically Black colleges and universities, Ida B. Wells is a name we've heard a lot. Nicole Hannah-Jones from the New York Times, her name on Twitter is Ida Bay Jones, so your great-grandmother has a legacy here. But for people who maybe have never heard of her, what was it about her journalism that stood out? Was it just the subject matter? Was it the way she reported? Talk to people who may not be familiar with her.
Well, one of the things that I tried to do in my book, Ida B. the Queen, was to help people understand why she was such a pioneer. Not only was she a writer, but she was an owner of a newspaper, which was extremely rare for Black women. And then when it came to writing, she chronicled the realities of what was going on regarding lynching. And so she was a pioneer in what is called data journalism today, where she wrote down names, dates, locations, reasons that were behind lynching. So she basically, created almost in her day, like a database to show that lynching that was taking place was a way to terrorize the African American community versus being used as a real sort of way to punish people for a crime.
I know I got to let you go in a second, but I wonder how you feel about just using a toy as a way into talking about this history. We've been having some really intense conversations in the last few years about how we talk about Black history through the whole debate over critical race theory and so on. And it seems like this might be a way to introduce kids to what is really a very serious, intense legacy in kind of a softer, accessible way.
Absolutely. I mean, my great-grandmother was a pioneer. She was, a journalist, and she wrote about very difficult topics. There was a lot of violence that took place during her lifetime, and she wrote about it in order to shame the United States into doing the right thing. And she was countering false narratives at that time. But she also was a suffragist, and she was a social worker. She had multiple sort of chapters of her life. And hopefully, through the doll, people will become interested in learning about her. And I have written 2 books, Ida B. the Queen, as well as Ida B. Wells' Voice of Truth, which can give people more information about who she was and what she did, and why she is important for people to be inspired by and learn from.
I know we asked our viewers who they would like to see commemorated in a Barbie, and one Twitter user, Hey Nav, wrote, "Oh, so many women deserve it. Where do we start?" I hear that, but I wonder, before I have to let you go, just what was your first reaction when you finally saw the figurine for the first time? What did you think of it?
I mean, it made it come true. I mean, I had seen, PDFs all along the stage of the production, but actually holding it in my hand was like, wow, this is really happening. It's beautiful, and hopefully it will be an entree to some to learn about her for the first time. And for those who are familiar with her, having the doll like on their desk right next to their computer will be inspiring and motivating to know they can make an impact just like she did.
Michelle Duster, I appreciate you making time for us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.